Welcome everyone, it is time for another review and we are going to be doing the Ibarra review today. Now before we get into this video, just a shout out to the fact that I do not have a camera. I am aware it is just one of those things that apparently is not quite working yet as I'm getting my new PC, but we have rebuilt a lot of the components required for doing this, so we're just going to do it anyway. Also because the JP side is about to get some major units dropped at New Year's, so I would like to move forward, get this Ibarra review done for whatever it is worth initially, and potentially reevaluate it with what is coming up in the future. Now, Ibara is an interesting unit for me to review. Obviously, on the JP side, we don't have her. We haven't had her for months. We don't have anyone who's built her. And it seems like so far on the global side, people are still mostly in the midst of building her. What I will say is that she provides both an interesting potential for the future, but at an incredibly high cost. Taking a look at Ibara's data both on Wotv Calc, through YouTube videos from other content creators in the community, and wonderful posters as well, such as Zayler 57 on Reddit, who did Ibara hit calculations, it's very interesting what comes clear in the future. I'll also be recommending who I think is the best partners for Ibara today, as well as her biggest weaknesses. And let's just get started right away by taking a look at her kit. Now, I'm going to only do the broad strokes here because I think at this point a lot of people have probably heard this before, so there isn't really much else to say. But needless to say, the fact that she is a demoness as the main is probably her biggest strength and weakness. Demoness is it's not human killer. We've seen this as an advantage with 2B and 9S in the past, where having a off-brand type unit is advantageous for capitalizing on human killer while not sacrificing that kind of weakness. Taking a look right now on the JP side is primarily all human characters that are the main damage dealers and are the ones that are constantly being used, both in Guild War as well as PvP. So it means that a lot of units are very weak to the exact same situations a lot of times. You can see right now just a slight list of very low ranks even, that a lot of high quality characters are still being used, and well, not everybody has fully equipped, but that is my fault for not getting incredibly high in this week's arena. Just been too busy with other things. Now, taking a look, Blade Soul and Paladin are both great sub-jobs, looking at a unit that can be potentially benefited from having a little more survivability, and her accessory excels at both giving magic and a little bit more accuracy, as we are about to get into. Now, the delightful demon skill that she has on her TMR, I have to say, is pretty nice. However, incredibly short-lived, allowing you to get basically one turn of a giant magic boost and move. I don't know if I necessarily trust the AI. On a small map, sure, this TMR will be nice, but I think that sometimes the AI may misuse this or just not get a chance to use this because the AI will switch once the enemy is in range and simply use attacks, not allowing it to use a giant buff. So this TMR seems much better for a controlled PvP environment rather than a actual just any PvP environment. But it is still a nice, big, strong boost. Taking a look at her supports, of course the human killer in her kit is going to be a major factor. She has a fair amount of access to spirit penetration, while also getting abilities in her kit that can also give her increased magic attack, magic resistance penetration, and human killer, restoring her own CT, which is good for her speed. and just dealing damage while also having access to a little bit of thunder support, being capable of reducing lightning resistance off of her limit burst. And one of the key things that stands out that other people have noticed, while her stat debuffs are not the highest of any unit we've ever seen before, one of the benefits is that she does get extra debuffs that are capable both in decreasing luck and in decreasing agility. Now, I think her main job is quite strong by the looks of it. It has AoEs available in it, which are important for, of course, farming and using this unit as a potential farmer in the future. Taking a look at Blade Soul as well as Paladin, both of these jobs are quite nice additions. Paladin giving her a little more survivability against physical damage, which I think will probably be her major weakness, and giving her more defense and spirit to potentially take powerful attacks, but doesn't really coalesce with the fact that she is primarily a mage unit. However, Blade Soul does open up a lot of possibilities for her to be synergistic. Taking a look at what is currently available in the Thunder element and into the near future, minus a few units that I do not have access to, she does have synergy with Charlotte and Cloud via Blade Soul, which is quite nice, seeing as those two units are still going to be very good into the future. So taking a look at her kit generally, I think that she's has a quite capable kit in a lot of ways. Also taking a look at her initial resistances against other magic, shooting, and piercing, which I consider to be one of her biggest weaknesses, mainly because of the way that the earth element is currently. You take a look at some of the strongest units in the earth element. Well, taking a look at the key one that always comes to mind is Oberyn. Oberyn has proven into the JP side long into the future that he is incredibly synergistic with multiple teams and a very capable damage dealer well into the future. Earth element is still going to be strong, but not necessarily the main problem that Global will experience into the future. So, also Noctis is another concern, but if you consider that he is a more, limited time character, you'll only have to worry about him potentially in higher PvP, but he is omnipresent and will be on very strong other players' teams. So I think that Noctis is still a concern to be worried about. But generally, Ibarra feels quite powerful overall in her kit, and thanks to certain calculations that we've seen, we know that she's pretty accurate. With for instance, a dark team, she can hit incredibly high percentages of accuracy, which is really great. Looking at comparable other dark teams, she is very accurate. And if you take a look at one of the big problems right now, Elena's evasion, it seems like she can still have a quite good chance of hitting. Again, thank you to Zayler57 for doing those calculations. However, talking about the JP side for a second and what is the current problem in the future, this is something I haven't really touched on too much in my other videos, mainly because of the crafting system on the JP side still being kind of imperfect, and me really waiting to not waste a ton of resources. Right now, the crafting side on the JP is pretty expensive for anyone to just jump right into. Feels like a lot of the times right now, you'll be using so many resources and so much money that I have kind of taken a little bit of a back seat, waiting to see what the JP side has turned out, and for the most part, the big turnout thus far has been evasion. Evasion comps on the JP side are a major problem, and everyone in high tier teams is effectively running them right now, turning a lot of late or high level play on the JP side into coin tosses about who will get more accurate first and who will hit the enemy and kill them. So an accuracy unit like Ibara is incredibly tempting right now on the JP side. However, that is effectively, dear viewer, where we run into a little bit of a problem of what is currently going on the global side versus what is currently going on the JP side. Global has a lot of luck-based support cards as well as some pretty good base evasion units. However, that is not what we are looking at on the JP side. JP side, as a matter of fact, is basically just building high-tier evasion equipment that has really nothing to do with so much with the luck stack. As a matter of fact, while this week we are getting a brand new light card that primarily focuses on luck up for the entire party, which should be a brand new headache, what we are essentially looking at right now is, for instance, Locke's piece of equipment, a already naturally high piece of evasion gear. But once you unlock all of the Trust Mastery slots and push it incredibly higher towards evasion and luck builds, you end up with units that are much stronger at evasion on the JB side than they are on the global side. And so far, there hasn't been an accuracy counterbalance to really check against it. When talking with other JV players, as a matter of fact, basically the general opinion about all future units right now is they better have a sure hit ability or they are effectively pretty useless. And that is an incredibly scary thing for the JP side. But let's just break it down to effectively simplify what I'm trying to say. Basically, JP side evasion is not the same as global evasion. Right now, JP evasion is a much scarier and more powerful behemoth that global is, while not necessarily totally wrong in preparing for, is maybe not necessarily preparing in the correct way. It's not just having naturally strong, accurate characters. It's potentially even, they need to be even more accurate for the future because the evasion buff is that powerful. So taking a look at Ibara's stock, Ibara right now seems to be handling evasion teams quite well, both from the benefit of her being a highly accurate character with damage capabilities, but she will need to have a primarily probably accuracy focused TMR in the future to keep pace. Whether she will be actually able to keep pace with what is about to happen for evasion teams is yet to be seen and is a little bit of a gray area going into the future and whether or not I can recommend Ibara. So let's take a step back and talk about who I think is the best teammates for Ibara, because a lot of people have been curious about with the newest addition to the JP side, Queen. And honestly, while Queen is not probably a bad match for Ibara, I don't think that she is the correct one. Primarily focusing potentially more on offensive in certain matches while focusing on magic in another, Queen is a bit of a wild card, but not necessarily the specialist I think that Ibara really wants. And taking a look at Ibara's weaknesses, her third party member in terms of PvP and arena matches, I think is pretty obvious. The most common way to counter Ibara will either be someone with high Demon Killer, which could come from a new global exclusive in the future, or could come from a new Earth Elemental character. And taking a look at the strongest Earth Elemental characters, well, let's be totally honest, Earth Magic right now is not the scariest it's been ever. Rule and not only Rule, but also Kill. Both of these characters are very strong in Earth Magic, but they're not really the primary ones that are being used. It's going to be essentially the big three physical characters and potentially Ketone, depending on whether if people build her as an evasion unit, that might be an accurate way of doing things in the future against Ibara. However, I am certain that Oberyn and Noctis will be the primary counters to if this character becomes too widespread. Now, just taking a look at what is the best character to use against that, it's very obvious to me, and it is a character that's probably going to be a little more expensive for people and a brand new character, so it makes sense that Gumi would be pushing Ibara out at the exact same time as this character is coming to the global side. Joom is an incredibly the perfect defense partner. Taking a look at what she can muster just on even not necessarily a completely specialized build here, Jum can end up with a lot of piercing and sword resistance, as well as a decent amount of earth resistance and magic resistance from my current build. Basically protecting Ibara from anything and everything. Jum also has really easy to manage hate and is just a strong character, period. So Jum and Ibara seem to be best friends for the future, but that also brings us to another problem, which is the third character that I think you would run in this comp. It's not anyone other than a other warrior of the crystal, specifically Renan. Renan is also another incredibly tanky based thunder mage that has access to a lot of survivability tools as well as damage capabilities and AoEs. Together they seem like a match made in heaven, being capable of reducing thunder resistance as well as just magic elemental resistance. And if you put a wind based tank in front of them, focusing primarily on an accurate thunder magic team that has a lot of wind as protection in the front, is probably your strongest team. And that brings me to kind of my final point about this, which is essentially about Ibarra as a investment. And that is exactly what I feel is the biggest weakness to Ibarra, besides the uncertainty that I give in this review. It's the fact that I think that she is going to be one of the most incredibly investment heavy characters into the future. You need to invest strongly in pure thunder based magic elemental cards. If there is ever a thunder accuracy card comes out, that will be a must for building and everything to keep pace with the strong evasion teams of the future. But it does require you to get 2 Warrior of the Crystal characters in relatively quick succession. If the schedule is pretty accurate to what I am tracking, June will be coming on the 1st in the global side, and then probably March for Renan. That's 2 crystal warriors that you need to build relatively quickly, and you're not going to be getting the full amount of value out of Ibara anytime in the near future, as you're going to need to build these other characters to really support her. Could you run an entire Thunder-based team? Sure, but I think that's leaving you incredibly open to powerful Earth Elemental characters, which are already good in their own right. But Ibara is an answer that I think we kind of want on the JP side as well. She's a not human-based character with strong synergy in future units that are already powerful. She's a Thunder enabler with good sub-jobs. But let's say that some of her stat debuffs are a little bit too restrained and probably needs incredibly heavy investment. And really, without a JP roadmap into the future, I can say that she'll probably be useful against what is going to happen. But how much value we'll actually for sure get out of her is a big question mark, and one that I don't have an answer for minus just theoretical. I've seen the stat builds. I think Ibara is really impressive, but let's be totally honest. If you're committing to this one, you're committing for the long run. So hopefully that has helped Globalers with my perspective on from the JP side. Of course, we know that there is going to be a little bit of a shift as well, with the inclusion of 2 brand new characters coming to the game in relatively short amount of time. But yes, there you go. So let me know what you think of Ibara, if you have any extra pieces that I may have missed to help other players out. And thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.